All right, so economic forecasts, I'll admit, not always the most exciting thing in the world,
You
right?
not alone there.
But this article from Foking Alpha called Forecast for a Changing Economy, this one actually got me thinking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's from January 19th, 2025, so pretty recent.
Mm.
And the thing that really kind of jumped out at me is this kind of weird paradox where, like, the U.S. economy looks really strong, on paper at least. You know, the numbers seem good.
Yeah.
But then you look at, like, voter sentiment, and it seems like people are pretty pessimistic.
Interesting.
Yeah, have you felt that at all? Like, that disconnect?
I mean, yeah, I think there's definitely a sense of unease out there,
Okay.
even if things seem, okay from a purely economic standpoint.
Yeah, and the article digs into, like, three big reasons why that might be. Inequality, housing affordability, and then this whole, like, tech revolution thing.
Yeah, those are just some pretty major forces shaping the world right now, not just the economy.
Exactly, and they all kind of play off each other, too, which is
Yeah.
what I found so interesting.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, right?
Yeah, so let's start with inequality. The article mentions that income inequality widened during Trump's first term, and it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, it's a persistent problem.
And it makes you wonder, like, what are the long-term implications of that trend, and is there anything that can actually be done about it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The article actually makes this point about factory jobs
Oh, yeah.
that I think is really important. Like, we hear all the time about this, manufacturing revival.
Right, bringing jobs back to America.
Yeah, but the reality is that factory employment is at, like, its lowest point in history.
Oh, wow.
And it's not just about, like, income. It's about opportunity. A whole way of life for a lot of people.
Yeah, like, even if some people are doing well, there's other people who are kind of getting left behind.
Exactly. And it extends beyond just income, too, right? Like, the article talks about education and health as well.
Yeah.
And how, people without a college degree are facing, like, shorter lifespans, fewer opportunities.
Wow.
That's pretty
really
stark.
Yeah, it's like this ripple effect, like,
It's chain reaction, yeah.
yeah, it impacts everything.
It does.
Which brings us to another issue that seems to impact everything, which is housing.
Oh, yeah.
The article paints a pretty bleak picture,
Yeah.
saying that home ownership is, becoming a distant dream for a lot of people because prices are skyrocketing while wages are basically staying the same.
Stagnant, yeah.
So is the American dream really, like, slipping away? Or is this just, like, part of a cycle? Because housing prices go up and down.
Well, they do. There are definitely historical cycles, but the scale of this affordability crisis, it just feels different.
Yeah.
Millions of people are being priced out of the market entirely.
Yeah.
It's a real problem.
How has the housing market affected your life? I'm curious.
Oh, absolutely. It's like every time I think I'm getting close to maybe being able to afford something,
The prices just jump up again.
it's a moving target.
It really is.
It is. It is. And, it's not just individuals, it's families, it's communities.
Right. It's societal.
It is. And finding solutions to increase affordability, I mean, it's critical.
Yeah.
This isn't just an economic issue. It's much bigger than that.
Right. And speaking of big societal issues, let's move on to the part that had me both terrified and kind of excited at the same time, which is technology.
Oh, boy.
So the article, it lays out these two kind of contrasting futures, right?
Yeah.
There's one where AI is this amazing utopia, like everything's solved. And then there's another one where we're basically in a dystopian tech oligarchy run by robots.
Right. Two extremes.
Are we just talking sci-fi here, or are these actually real possibilities that we should be thinking about right now?
I think it's a bit of both, honestly. Like, AI and crypto, they have incredible potential, right? But as the article points out, there are some serious potential downsides, too.
Yeah, like Biden's warning about a new Gilded Age, It's not hard to imagine, like, AI leading to massive job losses.
Right.
Or another crypto crash wiping people out.
Exactly. And the article uses some really interesting examples, like Elon Musk and his influence,
Yeah.
to illustrate these points. It really makes you think, are we going to use these technologies for good, or are they going to make existing inequalities even worse?
Right. It's a big question.
It is a big question.
And it's not just AI and crypto we're talking about here. The article briefly touches on 4 other, like, huge themes that readers are worried about.
Okay, I'm listening.
First up is the cost of isolationism.
Interesting.
I feel like that's something we hear a lot about these days.
Yeah, it's definitely a trend.
So what does that mean, like, in terms of the economy?
Well, it's interesting because the article doesn't really take a side. It just kind of lays out the facts, which are that this growing anti-globalism sentiment,
Right.
it has real financial and social costs.
Oh, okay.
Like how much are we willing to pay for isolationism? It's a
Yeah,
question worth thinking about.
definitely. Okay, and then there's the whole drone situation.
Oh, right.
The article says, like, the increasing use of drones in warfare, even terrorism.
Yeah, scary stuff.
Yeah, it's like a big concern. It feels like something out of a movie, but it's actually happening right now.
It's very real.
So like how do we adapt to that?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Like, do we need stronger regulations, better defenses?
Hmm.
This isn't just a military issue anymore. It affects everyone's safety.
That's a really good point. Okay, next up, health preparedness, specifically avian flu.
Oh, not exactly a light topic,
No, not at all.
but important.
Yeah. And the article talks about how like rapid detection and containment technologies are becoming more and more important.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting because if you connect that to what we were just discussing about AI,
Hmm.
you can start to see how these seemingly different things, they actually start to connect. Like,
Mm.
could AI play a role in preventing future pandemics? It's a real possibility.
Wow.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is. It is. Okay, last but not least, we have the crypto conundrum.
Yes, Griff Frank.
Despite all the skepticism and volatility, the article says crypto's role in financial systems is still a huge topic of conversation.
It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. They literally ask, is it worth holding on to? And if so, why?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is a tough one. And there's no easy answer, I think.
Right.
It really depends on, your individual risk tolerance,
Mm-hmm.
how well you understand the technology,
Mhm.
what you think the future of finance looks like.
Right, right.
It's a lot to consider.
Hmm. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's take a quick look at what the article calls Market Watch.
Okay.
It's basically their rundown of upcoming market events and what to watch out for.
Like a little peek behind the curtain of the financial world?
I like that. I like that. Okay, so first up, earnings season is in full swing. We've got some big companies reporting their financials this week. Netflix, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, American Express.
Big names.
Yeah. So what will these reports like tell us about the economy? What should we be looking for?
Well, Netflix's earnings, they'll give us a sense of whether people are, cutting back on streaming services, which could be a sign of, weakening consumer spending.
Ah, interesting.
On the other hand, Procter & Gamble's earnings will give us a look into how, everyday spending is holding up. Are people still buying their Tide Pods and their toothpaste?
Right, the essentials.
Exactly. So these reports, they can give us insights into, consumer demand, how companies are handling inflation, and overall corporate resilience.
So it's like taking the temperature of the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Then we have global economic data releases to watch out for, inflation reports, GDP data, potential interest rate changes.
The usual suspects.
Yeah, yeah. So why are these important? I mean, people throw around these terms all the time.
Well, they're important because they're basically like key indicators
Okay.
that can, move markets, influence investor decisions,
Yeah.
pay close attention to those releases, and also to what the, experts are saying about them.
Right, right.
Because they can often provide context and, help you make sense of the numbers.
Okay, got it. And then last but not least, the U.S. ban on TikTok is set to begin this Sunday. This is big.
This is huge.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you see this impacting things?
Well, it's a huge development in the tech landscape for
Yeah.
sure. It'll be interesting to see how this impacts not just TikTok, but the broader social media industry,
Mm-hmm.
even, U.S.-China relations.
Oh, wow.
It has a lot of potential ripple effects.
So much to keep an eye on.
So much.
So what does all of this mean for investors? The article ends by highlighting two key areas: dividend investing in 2025 and understanding the opportunities and risks associated with AI, crypto, and innovation.
And that's where I think Foking Alpha's mission really shines through. They're all about providing the insights you need to, navigate this complex landscape with confidence.
Yeah, which is exactly what we're trying to do here today.
Absolutely.
But before we jump into part 2 of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this. The article focused mainly on the U.S. economy.
Right.
But how might these global trends play out differently in other parts of the world? That's something I've been thinking about a lot.
It's definitely something to consider as we continue our exploration.
It is.
It is. Welcome back to our deep dive,
Yeah.
into these economic forces that are shaping 2025.
I'm still thinking about all the stuff we talked about, like in the last part,
Oh, yeah.
especially that whole thing about AI maybe helping prevent pandemics.
Right.
That's kind of mind-blowing to me.
Right. It really highlights how, interconnected these things are.
It does. It does. Okay, so getting back to the Foking Alpha article,
Yeah.
they talk about these potential investment opportunities for 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one they mention is dividend investing.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure I understand what that means.
Oh, it's actually pretty simple. Dividend investing is basically buying stock in companies that pay out a portion of their profits to shareholders.
So it's like a bonus for owning their stock.
Exactly, yeah. And in uncertain economic times, dividend stocks can provide a steady stream of income, help protect against inflation.
So it's kind of like a safety net then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially when, the market is going crazy.
Right, right. But of course, like any investment, there are risks, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So what should people be looking for?
Well, it's important to do your research. Choose companies with a history of, paying dividends consistently.
So not just like chasing the highest yield.
Right, exactly. You want companies that are, well managed, have a strong competitive advantage, operate in industries that are likely to perform well in the future.
So it's about like long-term stability then.
Exactly, yeah. Think of it this way. It's like, choosing between a high-growth startup that might explode in value or a well-established company that pays you a steady dividend.
Mm.
Both have their place. It just depends on, your risk tolerance.
Right, right. That's a really helpful analogy. Okay, so what about the other big investment opportunity that the article highlights? AI, crypto, and innovation.
Right. This is where things get really interesting. These are the technologies that, have the potential to transform entire industries, create incredible wealth.
But also come with a lot of risk, right?
Oh, of course. Of course. Like we talked about earlier, the potential for job displacement, market crashes, all that.
So how do you balance that? Like how do you approach investing in this space?
Well, I think it's all about being informed,
Yeah.
Understand the potential benefits, but also the risks.
So don't just like throw money at the latest buzzword.
Exactly. Do your research, understand what you're investing in.
Right.
And that's where I think Foking Alpha's expertise can be valuable.
Yeah, like knowing which companies are leading the charge in AI or which crypto projects have real-world applications, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. It's about separating the hype from the reality
Mm-hmm.
and identifying the real opportunities.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, like what's the key takeaway for listeners who are interested in investing in 2025?
I'd say it's this. Do your research, understand the risks, and don't be afraid to seek out expert advice.
Because knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to your money.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
No.
Now, should we move on to the final part of our exploration?
Absolutely. Let's do it. And we are back for the final part of our deep dive into the forecast for a changing economy. It's been quite a journey.
We've covered a lot, haven't we? Inequality, housing, the whole tech revolution, markets.
I know. It really feels like we've touched on almost every aspect of modern life.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It really is. And speaking of touching on everything, I wanted to circle back to something the article brought up at the very beginning, which was this disconnect
Oh, yeah.
between the U.S. economy, seemingly doing well, and then the very real pessimism that a lot of voters seem to be feeling.
Right, that paradox.
Yeah, like what's the deal with that?
It is a strange one. By many of the traditional measures, the economy is strong, but people aren't necessarily feeling those benefits.
Exactly. And so after all of this discussion, after looking at all these different factors, what do you think is the biggest contributor to this disconnect?
That's a great question. And I don't think there's one simple answer.
Right.
But if I had to pick a key factor,
Sure.
I'd say it's the uneven distribution of the benefits of economic growth.
You mean the inequality we were talking about?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The article makes it very clear that while the economy as a whole might be performing well, the gains aren't being shared equally. Some groups are thriving, while others are being left behind.
Which then leads to that sense of frustration and disillusionment, even if the numbers look good on paper.
Exactly.
People see the wealth being created, but they don't feel it in their own lives. They're dealing with higher costs, their wages aren't keeping up, opportunity feels limited.
It's not just about the overall level of economic growth, it's about how that growth is distributed. It's about fairness, opportunity, and, making sure that everyone has a chance to share in prosperity.
Which brings us back to Foking Alpha's mission, right?
Yeah.
To give people the insights they need to navigate the future with confidence.
Absolutely. It's about understanding what's happening, seeing the opportunities, but also managing the risks.
It's about using that knowledge to make informed decisions,
Exactly.
not just in our personal lives, but also in the world around us.
Ex
And I think that's what we've aimed to do today, is to give you a deeper understanding of the economic landscape and the challenges that we're all facing.
I think we've done that.
Yeah, we've explored the complexities, looked at how all these seemingly separate issues are actually all connected, and hopefully got you thinking about things in a new way.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
The article focused on the U.S. economy, but these trends, inequality, technology changing everything, the struggle for affordability,
Yeah.
these are happening all over the world.
Right.
So how will these forces shape the future, not just in America, but globally? What will the world economy look like in 2025 and beyond?
It's a question worth pondering, for sure. And I hope you'll continue to explore these topics, stay informed, and share your own thoughts and ideas.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately, the future is what we make it.
Well said. A huge thank you to our expert for all the incredible insights today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And to you, dear listener, for joining us on this deep dive. I hope you found it informative, interesting, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
As always.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay ahead of the curve.